Jimbo's Garage.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Jimbo's Garage. About 2 years ago, I had a wildly successful video called the Speakeasy Gate. It generated well over 1 million views. And today, I've got something very similar. This one's going to be about 3 feet wide, 6 feet tall, with a really tight radius at the top, and we're going to be using Ipe wood for the infill. Let's get started on today's video. Today's video is sponsored by King Metals. They've got all your fabrication needs in one location. From hinges to hardware, balusters to metal decor, brass to aluminum, and a whole lot more. You name it, they've got it. Check them out today at kingmetals.com. Now let's get back to today's video. All right, so we're starting out right here. You can see that I've already got the frame built. I'm ahead of the game here a little bit. I had an existing opening that I was working with, and it was quite a chore to get this frame built to fit that opening. You can see there was a lot of work, a lot of hours that went into it, but I finally got it, and now this is the inside of the actual the gate itself. So you can see that I've had the radius built, and I always have the tails. After the radius is built, I always have the tails long. I end up cutting those things off, and then I will weld the right proper length and stuff on and get everything lined up the way it should be. I get a lot of people ask me where I get the radius done. I have a local metal supply store here in town that does all my bending for me. This is a really tight radius, so I was really surprised we were able to make this work. Well, it didn't quite get perfect. You can see how I had to I had to cut it a little short, and then I'm welding these on right here, and you can see they're a little wide, and I'm going to have to end up taking the heat to it and then bending them down and making them fit. Sometimes when you make those cuts, you get some gaps, and that's why you see me do a little bit of stitch welding here if I have to kind of fill those gaps a little bit. All right, so this is what I'm talking about. So I'm heating these areas up right here to bend these legs in to take shape, for the inside of the frame. And one thing you probably don't see is you don't see the marks I have marked out on my welding table. This is the marks I'm trying to line up with, and I need to bend these things around and line up with the marks right there to assure it's going to fit inside the frame. I can't tell you how many hours I spent with this heating torch trying to bend things to make things fit. When you don't have a perfect radius to work with, oh my gosh, this was quite a learning experience for me. I've spent hours and hours with the frame and then the inside of the gate right here. But ultimately, I got happy with it, and I'm looking for about 3/8 of an inch gap, reveal, I should say, between the frame and the gate, and that's what I ended up with. Here's something interesting here. Now, this is a standard lock box from kingmetals.com. This is typically what I use for most of my gates. This is a double lock box, so this handles the lock itself plus the deadbolt. But the customer had some custom hardware that didn't adapt to the size right here. So I had to modify this box slightly. I've never done anything like this, but you just don't know how things are going to happen, how they're going to work until you actually jump right in there and do it. So I had to extend this box by cutting it in half and putting a filler on the inside and also a filler on the outside, one side, to make up the distance to make the box bigger to accommodate the hardware. You see me right here. This is just some 1-inch flat bar stock that I'm just welding all around the outside and trying to create a rectangular tube, if you will. And this is just the start of the modification I'm going to use to this box right here. Ultimately, when this thing is all done, there's going to be a lot of grinding that's going to take place, and to make things look right. This is just the beginning right here. This is just the filler part right here that I'm cleaning up. All right, so here's the box, and you can see that I've got a nice straight edge up on the top right there, and then the filler pieces going in. I'm holding everything nice and square, nice and flat, so things line up. Get things tacked into place to keep them as flat as I can. And then I'm going to start the welding process. I didn't know how this was going to work at first, so you can see me doing a little bit of stitch welding there. I'm just taking my time. I'm trying to do what I can to keep it from deflecting or warping too much. And once I got going, I noticed it really wasn't warping at all. So I went ahead and just finished welding everything out. You know, I say welding out. Is it welding it in or is it welding it out? I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, that's what I'm doing. A lot of time, a lot of detail goes into this in order to make this happen, to make it work. I know it's looking a big gap right there I'm trying to fill. I think it's probably at least 1/4 of an inch wide right there. You know, right when you get to the end like this, that even harder to seal up. All right, it looks pretty ugly right there, but here in a couple minutes, once I get everything ground down and smoothed out, you know, we'll be back in business. I get a lot of people also ask me what type of flap disc. These are Mercer flap discs. This is a trimmable ceramic flap disc. This is a 60 grit. This is my commonly go-to disc right here. It works the best for me. I've got all kinds of different grit sizes, but the 60 grit works the best for me, especially when they're brand new. They're super sharp like this, and man, they remove a lot of metal. All right, with all that done, now it's time to cut the opening out. Now, I'll get people also ask me, where does this lock box go? Well, I put the lock typically 36 inches from the bottom of the gate to the actual lock assembly itself, and then the deadbolt goes above that. So that's what I normally do, and I don't know if 36 is pretty common. If you check your doors at your house, you'll see I think that most of them are around 36 to 38 inches. So that's what I'm doing, and that's what I normally do, and that's what we're doing here. All right, getting everything in place right here. And this is one thing that I've learned as I've done these things over the years is keeping everything nice and straight, especially when you put this in, because when you put a lot of heat into this situation right here, it's going to want to draw in or out. It's going to want to flex or bow. So I keep everything fastened down nice and tight to my welding table. And here you see me shimming everything up. And once I get everything shimmed up, I crank it down, clamp everything down, get everything nice and tight and nice and square. And then once I'm happy with all that, then I can go ahead and start welding things. And typically I weld what I can from this position right here, and then I'll ultimately flip it over and you know, finish that out. All right, this one thing I couldn't cut on the saw, so I had to manually cut this 45-degree angle at the bottom of the gate right here, and then welding the bottom piece in. Again, stitch welds, a little bit of a gap right there. All right, once everything is welded in, it's just some final grinding right here. Yeah, check this out. Look at the mess of that radius on the inside of that gate frame. Look at the welding and the heat marks all the way around, and all of that was trying to get, and I didn't film any of that, but that was trying to get this radius to fit inside this gate frame that was not a perfect radius. And I'm telling you, it was a lot of work, but I was able to get it done. And this is just me here cleaning up everything after the fact, and you know, grinding everything down and smoothing things out the best I can. All right, this is the frame for the front part of the Speakeasy gate. And this will be me making the box right here. This is a 10-inch square made out of some 1-inch by 2-inch rectangular tubing. And this is going to represent the box or the frame for that grate that's going to be in the front of the gate right there. Yeah, I've been really happy with the Evolution cutoff saw. This is my second one now. These things work really good. And of course, company with a Champion blade. I've had nothing but success with this combination right here. Works really well, and I have hundreds and hundreds of cuts. All right, clamping everything down. This is the 10-inch frame right here, and checking for square, and everything is good. And then I'm just going to go ahead and tack everything up and get this thing welded out. A lot of detail, a lot of detail is going into this gate, a lot more. You know, people ask me, how do you charge for something like this? This is almost impossible for me to charge for this. Luckily, the customer was very, willing to just kind of go with it, not knowing what's involved. I mean, you just, between the lockbox and all the detail that goes into this, and the hours that I spent, making the radius fit within the frame, there's no price you can really put on something like this. But you know what? At the end of the day, when the project is complete, and that's where the satisfaction and the reward comes in. All right, there's the box right there, and it's trying to line things up right here. I gotta say, I'm finally moving forward right here. Finally making some progress, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. So I'm eyeballing everything in right now. I've got some rough measurements and marks that are on the outside of the frame, and I'm just kind of lining everything up close to those marks right here, and then I'm just going to clamp everything down. It's important to get everything clamped flat down to your welding surface or welding table. You can see I'm double checking the marks right here with my measurements, and once I get those double checked, I'll be eyeballing those back and forth to be sure they line up, and then start to weld everything. Today's welder of choice is the HTP ProPulse 220 MTS. This is my go-to machine right here, and I'm using 35 thousandths wire, and gas is 90-10, 90% argon, 10% CO2, and I'm running right about 25 CFH. And my inches a minute with the machine that I'm operating with, and the material thickness right here is right around 250 inches a minute. That seems to be the best for what works for me with this machine. Different machines vary, and of course wire size will make a difference. If you're running 30 thousandths wire, then your inches a minute will probably be more. This is what I use most of the time for everything. All right, once I got everything all welded out, then it's time to try to clean things up a little bit with the welds that I can that are on both the inside and the outside of the frame. And now I'm putting in the 1 inch, or I should say, excuse me, 3/4 inch by 1/8 inch flat bar stock. Now this is going to be going around the entire perimeter of everything that you see on the inside right here. This is what retains the wood. When we put the wood in from the back side, this is what retains the wood, is this 3/4 inch flat bar stock. A lot of it has to happen. Of course, it's got to go in the tight radius in the top. It's got to go around the square frame for the grate as well. So there's a lot of cutting and a lot of detail that has to happen. And for that, I got those mag squares. Pretty handy things to have, just when you think you have enough of those. It just seems like every time I do a project, I order 2 more off Amazon. They're pretty inexpensive. I think they're like $11 or $13 a piece or something like that. And every time I do a project, it seems like I need more, so I'm always ordering a couple more. I think I have almost 10 of them now. Of course, I got some smaller ones up there too as well. They're super handy for projects that you do. They work really well. This right here is, I'm notching the 3/4 by 1/8 inch flat bar for the tight radius at the very top, and about every inch or so, and I'm running that cut all the way down to allow me to make the bend. You can see right there I'm hand forming that bend on the inside of that radius, and once I get it close enough there and lined up, and then of course the mag squares to hold it in place, then I'm just going to go ahead and start on one end. And by tapping things down and pulling everything tight to the inside of the frame, I'll work my way around, a little bit at a time. And as I'm going, I tap everything tight to the frame, and that radius just forms itself. And then welding every one of those cuts right back up again. So all those cuts you made after the radius is done, you weld them right back up, and then you come back and grind them all flat. Like I said, tremendous amount of detail, a lot of work goes into this, but at the end of the day, it's something you're happy with. All right, so just finishing all that up. That's like I said, that was a lot of work to get all that welded in all the way around. But you know, once I get that done, then it's time to come back and grind everything down. A brand new flap disc on there makes good order of these welds. I knew I had a lot of grinding to do, so put me in a nice fresh one, and takes no time at all to go through here and clean everything up. Now what I'm doing, I'm just grinding these things down flush. You know, and the powder coat, like I said, the primer and the powder coat will cover the majority of this. Any scratches that get in there, it covers up, and actually it looks pretty good. This is going to be kind of like a brown color when it's all done, so it's gonna hide that pretty good. I know it looks really rough with all the welds on there, but like I said, you grind everything down, things start looking pretty good. And now the big task is going all the way around that radius and welding all and grinding all that down. All right, so now the last part of it, and that's to get the hinges welded on. You can see that I've got everything ground down, and it fits nicely inside the frame, at least as nice, as good as I'm going to be able to get it. It wasn't absolutely perfect, but it was close enough. And you can see I'm clamping everything down, and I'm just going to go ahead and weld on the bullet hinges right here, or weld on hinges. That's what I like to use for gates like this. And location wise, of course, it's going to be right at the very bottom of the radius there on the straight part, and then up about 6 or 7 inches from the bottom of the gate to the bottom of the hinge is where I like to put them. You know, when you put these bullet hinges on, you really need to keep your eye, you need to keep them nice and straight. They got to be nice and straight. See, I actually started welding that on a little bit, and it was a little crooked, so I had to cut that off. And you got to keep them nice and straight. Those pins, that way those pins line up and they slide on and off the gate nice and easy. And welding these on, you can see I'm doing a little manipulation with the gun. I'm trying to make a nice pretty looking bead right here on both sides of this right here. This is you know, kind of somewhat going to be seen a little bit, and so I'm trying to get a really nice looking weld on here. All right, the final touches before it goes off to the powder coaters, and that is getting this grate lined up. We're going to get this welded on. This grate came powder coated, and so what's really important before you weld is clean off that powder coating or paint, primer, all that stuff, whatever is on there. And you want fresh metal when you go ahead and weld something like this on. Otherwise, it's going to be a miserable weld job, and that's what I had here. A couple of these, you can see, maybe you can see that they don't start, you can see that you know, they're flashing a little bit. I didn't quite get all the primer or the powder coat off, but ultimately we got it, and there it is, complete in the frame, and that's working pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Off to the powder coaters and back, just like that. And there it is, ready to install the wood. Now this is the Ipe wood that we're using. This is actually the owner. He is also a contractor that I'm doing the work for here. So this is his personal gate. And you can see we're fitting the wood in with the angle iron that we're going to be using to retain the wood on the back side. That's the way I like to do it. Now you can see those hash marks in the wood right there. This is reclaimed Ipe wood that he had on a different project, and he cut those nails off. This is on the back side of the gate. This is not going to be on the front side. The front side looks nice and clean. And then we're just getting everything lined up. And the way I like to do this is 3/4 angle iron, and I like to pre-drill a hole, and then I've got some self-tapping screws that I use to hold the angle iron in place, and that is what holds the wood in place. Now the advantage of doing this is a couple of things. One, you don't really have any visible screws from the front side or the back side that's holding the wood onto a frame. And the other thing is, in case you wanted to change the wood out down the line, you could just remove the angle iron and replace the wood. So pretty clean application. It looks good when it's all done. And this is just the way I like to do things. You can see I've got a clamp, and I clamp it nice and tight down, and it pulls it tight to the bottom part of the that 3/4 by 1/8 inch flat bar to the front side, and then drill and put the screws in. Doesn't take many, just a couple screws there, and maybe 2 screws here, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 along the long side, and that's all you really need, and it holds everything in place pretty nice. The cardboard there obviously is to keep it from marring the wood. I've made that mistake on the first couple ones. You can see the drill chuck gets right down in there, and sometimes it spins and mars the wood. You can see that actually what it's doing onto the cardboard right there. That's why I like to keep the cardboard down. All right, so what I didn't mention that I'm actually making 2 of these gates. I'm filming this one right here, but this is the customer wants 2 of them for either side of his garage, and I was able to get that done as well. And you can just see that I just wanted to show all the work that went into this right here. A lot of detail goes into making a single gate like this, and you can imagine replicating and making 2 of them exactly the same. That was a lot of work, but like I said, at the very end, it was nice. All right, so there they are. The gate is complete, and I got to say I'm really happy with the way that turned out. And here's the 2 of them together after it was all done, and of course the final installation pictures as well. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. I hope you learned something from it. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next gate build. I've got several of them coming over the next month or so. So look forward to seeing a whole bunch of different gates. All right, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video.
See you next time on Jimbo's Garage.